The acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Well, he has also an update on one of the stories we ran some days ago. The petitioners of Honorable Abubakar Galadima Kuki, member representing Bebeji constituency in the Kano State House of Assembly, who wanted him recalled, have written the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to withdraw the petition. That means the commission will take no further action on the matter. Now picking it from where we left off on a major story that we've been following since yesterday, the story of the Nigerian economy and the burden of corruption. The Senior Special Assistant to President Buhari on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, said in an open letter to former President Goodluck Jonathan that his administration left a shattered economy. Today, we take the discussion a little further, considering a new report from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics that did not only indict politicians. It says Nigerian corruption is in large scale and involves 95% of Nigerians. Here is a summary of the report if you haven't read it. It says that Nigerians have spent about 400 billion on payment for bribe between June 2015 and June 2016. The survey also shows that only 5.3% of Nigerians will either refuse to pay a bribe when asked or refuse to accept when a bribe is offered to them. It also states that police officers are among the 3 types of public officials to whom bribes are paid most frequently. Other public agencies with high prevalence of corruption are the Immigration Services with 30.7%, Car Registration, Driver Licensing Agency 28.5%, Tax Revenue Agencies 27.3%, and Customs 26.5%. The survey also shows that the private sector has a major role to play in Nigeria's level of corruption. Well, let's get perspectives of our analysts on the program tonight as we look at the debate between the Jonathan government, the man who left office recently, and the APC government that has spent about 2 years in government. Where are we as a nation? We have Mr. Sam Omaseye, the chairman, editorial board of the Nation newspaper, here in the studio in Lagos, and the lawyer Daniel Bwala in our Abuja studio. Many thanks, gentlemen, for joining us on the program. Let me start with you, Mr. Omaseye. If the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, did say, his administration fought corruption, and in fact, they even did so much. The TSA was there, they did a lot of policies to fight corruption, and the president, Muhammadu Buhari, says corruption is going to be the spine of his administration's agenda. And look at where we are today and the survey that is released by NBS today. What kind of story or narrative do we have presently?
We have a narrative that indicts both of them. 2015 to 2016 was under Buhari's watch. And if we spend 400 billion in bribery and corruption, it is very clear that the war of corruption did not save 400 billion. President Jonathan does not have much to say about what corruption is. Himself said stealing is not corruption. He never did anything concrete to fight corruption, except that, well, he put some things in place, but they were not strong enough to save the country from the mammoth scale of corruption on his watch. And the revelations in the past 2 years bear them out. There's no need when you have evidence to start fighting the truth.
Well, in the real sense of it, the back and forth has been there of whether or not the APC government has moved from where the PDP government left off. We looked at economy yesterday, and the APC government will tell you that the government of Jonathan actually ran this country aground, looking at what has happened. If you look at the issues of corruption that is coming up today, would you say these two governments done little, or what would you say of the two governments?
Much of it is still cosmetic in terms of fighting corruption. In the times of Jonathan, Jonathan did a great deal of harm to the economy because it was a free flow of corruption. It's like a stream just moving unhindered. That was the nature of corruption in Jonathan's era. You can see the mammoth billions that have been unearthed since AFCC started looking into the dirt in Jonathan's administration.
Some people will say that some of those allegations have not held water because...
Many of them have been proven. Many of them have been proven. Many of them are in court. A lot of money has been recovered. So many of them have happened before our eyes. We know the story of the flat in Victoria Island. That's money. We have the story of the former security man, Dasuki. That is his story. We have so many of them. So that is one thing. The Buhari administration came in to fight corruption. It has done so to the best that it can. But what we have is not that we have it to the scale in which Jonathan did it, but the point is that it doesn't have the imagination to make sure that when you fight corruption, you fight it in a massive way with a strategy that comes from top to bottom. If you look at example in history, the United States had what they called the progressive era. During the progressive era, corruption was fought not only by government, but by various professionals and institutions, public or private. In other words, it was a collective thing. The Buhari administration has not been able to galvanize the public in a sense in which everybody feels they have a stake in the fight against corruption.
Because even it has become a very political
thing.
In Jonathan's time, there was a minister of incidents that people in the cabinet that were removed because of allegations of corruption. But let me bring Mr. Daniel Buala into this conversation. As a lawyer, judiciary was one area that the Buhari administration had its fear about whether or not this anti-corruption war is going to work. But as a lawyer, what can you say if you look back to what President Jonathan is saying and what we have on the ground in the Buhari administration? What can you tell us?
Right. Thank you for having me. First of all, I want to start by saying that the blame game is very sad because the blame game would polarize even the perception as well as the efforts of Nigerians, because the minute you do that, those who are loyal to Jonathan might not cooperate with this administration and its fight against corruption, because there are individuals who also believe strongly, and rightfully so, that this administration's approach to fighting corruption is also selective, and that argument is also valid. But if you look at the two administrations, and try to compare which of the administration has shown some degree of willingness to fight corruption, I think that President Buhari's administration is by far more determined in that fight. In his administration, there is the political will. In the administration of Jonathan, the political will was not there. As a matter of fact, corruption, some people had it, believe that during his time, corruption was not only enthroned, but corruption was empowered to resist anything possible against it. But you see, as Nigerians, what we are looking at is the overall objective of government, which is that we want prosperity for the country. And so when we look at anti-corruption fight, whether be it from the time of President Jonathan or in this time of President Buhari, as a lawyer, mine is to give an unbiased perspective. And I hold the view that both administrations have tried, even though this administration is doing more, but this administration's approach and strategy has not been so refined. And that is why we have not seen success to the extent, because you determine the success of anti-corruption fight not just by the statement, but by the result, which of course should be evidence in conviction or in forfeiture of property, and that we have not seen. It has nothing to do with President Buhari or acting President Yemi Osinbajo. I think it has more to do with the agencies of government tasked with this responsibility. Their approach has not been very strategic.
I mean, you will want to measure the anti-corruption war success in this Buhari era by how much of prosecution they made and the ones they are able to get out in the court, not just the one we see in the media and what they say they're doing. They lost several high-profile cases. Would you say that there's been movement or there's just been a stalling in the manner in which it has progressed?
Right. You don't fight corruption by threatening judges. That's the opinion I've always had and I've expressed. that some of the individuals leading the anti-corruption, like the Presidential Advisory Committee, I've said it before, and their spokesman in the Federal Ministry of Justice, Obla, most of the times the allegation he leveled against judges, I have always had the view, it's wrong. Because even if a judge is passionate about a criminal trial, the law prohibits the judge from descending into the arena. The prosecution team, we have said it before, you somehow needs to check the way and manner in which investigation is carried out. Because if you have a poor investigation, you cannot have a successful conviction. Conviction is premised on proper investigation, and that has been the problem. Then secondly, the approach of the corruption team towards the trial. When the defense comes up with an excuse or an application for bail, since you know the charges are not murder charges, why do you waste the time opposing the bail application? Because it is that opposition to the bail application that takes trial to 1 year, 2 years,
Mr. Buala,
the trial goes down. And then by the time
we need to take a break. Corruption and violence create bad image for Nigeria. Both we've talked about today. When we return, we engage our guests on how we can tackle these problems head on. And of course, President Buhari has been out for over 100 days. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back.